Celtics Beat is brought to you by PrizePicks.
Hey everyone, welcome in. New edition of Celtics Beat as we close out February, which means we're almost at Jason Tatum month. Yes, we have that to look forward to. Back 5-on-5 practicing, not just with Maine, but with the big clubs, so that'll be fun. But listen, as Dan Greenberg joins us here, Barstool Greenie, good friend of the program, have him on, I don't know, once a month or so, somewhere in that range. Evan Valenti, Adam Kaufman. You know, Greenie, 38-20 is not bad.
It's great.
It's not bad. No, I mean,
it's great.
For a gap year, it's not bad. It's not bad at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's not 40-19.
Correct.
It's not 40-19. RIP to the 40-20 rule for the Celtics this year. Congratulations to one of these eventual champions, I guess, the Oklahoma City Thunder, the San Antonio Spurs, the Detroit Pistons, who, by the way, just for funsies, I did bet money on, well, not the Thunder, because that's like plus 135 or something. But the other two, I did bet money on each of them at long odds to win the title after everything became official for Boston last night. Just for fun, not a lot of money. Already have a ticket, by the way, on the Celtics to win the Eastern Conference. Still hoping that comes through at right around plus 400. But listen, 40-20. For anyone that does not know, and I don't know how you could possibly follow Greenie on Twitter and not know, the whole thing, the Phil Jackson credited concept is win 40 games before you lose 20, and you are viewed historically, of course, historically only goes back to 1980, as a championship contender. There are only 4 exceptions dating back to then to where a team has not won the title. And typically, and Greenie, you've done the research, so I'll let you speak to it. But typically, let's say between, I don't know, 3 and 5 teams per year qualify at best. The Celtics, obviously not one of them this year. They were during their title year. They were last year. Didn't happen this year. Nobody thought it would happen this year until suddenly it became realistic with the strong start out of the gate coming out of the All-Star break, and obviously all the hope they provided prior to that. You had to get through Denver, though, and it looked for a little while that might happen. And then, unfortunately, in the second half, Jokic happened, and it didn't. Before we talk about that game, we will get there. 40-20 just as a rule. Clearly, you're a buyer, you're a believer. I happen to know there are people out there that think this is incredibly stupid, and there are other metrics that should be paid far more attention to. Plead your case.
So I think first and foremost, you always have to remember hitting 40-20 does not guarantee that you will win the title, right? We saw the 1920 Celtics hit it, the 22-23 Celtics hit it. They did not win. They lost to teams that hit it, but it doesn't guarantee you that you win. But if you fancy yourself a contender and you want to win the title, it's a very, very, very important box to check. It's not the only box that you have to check, but you said it, 40 out of the last 44. And really, I don't even count the 2021 Bucks season because that was a shortened year. When I look at 40-20, I only compare it to the 82-game season. So I throw out the 2020 Lakers season. I throw out the 99 Spurs lockout year, the 2012 Heat lockout year. Like when I think of 40-20, it's a normal 82-game season just so that you can compare it, you know, throughout history. So they didn't hit it, which is, you know, it's a big deal. And I think people, once they didn't hit it, I personally started to see a lot more of, oh, this doesn't matter. Oh, we have Tatum coming back. It's not even a real thing. Like, no. If they had hit it, we would all be treating it like you normally would when they hit it in their title year. It was a pretty big deal, right? Like that's just how it goes. I don't think you can spin zone yourself to be like this rule means nothing now that the Celtics didn't hit it. However,
there are others that might mean more, right? There, you know, for instance, I think it was Matt Moore who wrote about this on his Substack. You know, the different qualifications, the strength schedule one, or maybe most notably, even though it is a wider range of teams every year, historically in the NBA, like this 40-20 thing, like you said, you know, people only take it back to 1980, and I'm not saying that's a small sample, but the NBA started before that. Historically, if you go back all the way through the NBA, 97% of teams to win the championship finished as a top 3 seed.
Right. So
the
you
Celtics
need 2
are going to have that one.
Right. So you need up between 40-20 SRS over 4.0, which is just a combination of point differential and strength of schedule. and then top 3 seed. Every champion, not even 90%, every champion has checked at least 2 of those 3 boxes. Normally, you want to hit that 40-20. If you don't hit 40-20, you want those other 2 checked. This is, I think, the spin zone or the rationale for why the Celtics are not dead and why they have a good shot at being the 5th exception to the 40-20 rule. They hit both of those. And then when you factor in the addition of Jason Tatum, we were talking earlier, it's the exact same formula as the 94-95 Rockets, the first of these exceptions, to where they had won a previous title. They won the year before. They did not hit 40-20. At the trade deadline, they added Clyde Drexler, who was, I think, 31 or 32. So beginning his tail end, but made 3rd-team All-NBA that season. He had played 0 seconds for the Rockets before he joined them. So it wasn't like you had a guy, but he was hurt, and then he came back. So, like, think a team like the Nuggets, right? Like, they had Jokic, but then he went out, but he's actually healthy. It's not that type of situation. Clyde Drexler came back, joined that team on the deadline, averaged 27-5 as a Rocket, was a big part of their playoff run. They won the championship, did not hit 40-20, but they had hit the other qualifiers. So when you look at the Celtics situation, it's a big time gut punch that they didn't hit 40-20. Because if you hit 40-20 and you're adding Jason Tatum, you're cooking with gas. The safety net is the fact that, like you said, they've hit 2 of those other very historical benchmarks, and you get to follow the path of a team that ended up being one of the exceptions to the rule.
Yeah, the thing for me, when you look at the 40-20 club and specifically for the Celtics, like, the Pistons made it, yes, like, no question. They've been a juggernaut all season. But, like, I try and look at this season in stages where you look at the Eastern Conference playoffs and then the finals as, like, 2 separate things. And so you look at the Pistons and you say, yeah, they hit 40-20. They've hit all these check marks. But you look at them and you say, well, that's a team that's pretty inexperienced in the playoffs. Can they win 4 rounds with the group that they have versus a team like Boston or a team like New York or a team like Cleveland? Should you be totally afraid of that team? Again, they've had a terrific season. Cade is a top X MVP candidate. If you want to put him 3, 4, 5, like, I don't really care. He's a top MVP candidate. But at the same time, it's a young team that hasn't won a playoff series ever. Greenie, I don't know if you have this in your bag of tricks. As a team that has hit 40-20 SRS, top 3 seed, but never won a playoff series before, ever made it to the finals? Like, is that even possible?
There is the conference finals rule.
Okay.
Where
That's a lot of rules.
Yeah.
I love it, though.
When you're neurotic like me, this is how you spend your free time.
Sure.
So if you look back in NBA history, I believe it's either no team has either won the title. Yeah, no team has won the title. I don't know if it's all time or in the last, couple decades without a player without your main guys making the conference finals. And a great example of this is last year's Cavs. Last year's Cavs hit 40-20. They were a juggernaut. They had a great point differential in terms of, historic ranking. Donovan Mitchell has never made a conference finals. Evan Mobley has never made a conference finals. Darius Garland never made a conference finals. What happened? They flamed out. You look at guys, teams like the Sixers who had made, who had hit 40-20. I can't remember. James Harden made it. But like those earlier teams in the process did not have a player, of their main trio. So that's where you could say for the Pistons, we said, 3 to 5 teams hit 40-20 every year, but only one of them wins. So I look at them as a team like, yeah, you have a shot to win the title. The conference finals rule matters to you. And that's where I could see them. They could make a run, but ultimately they could even make the finals. But ultimately, I would not be surprised if they fall to either a Spurs or a Thunder team that makes it through who hit 40-20. That's just how it takes out.
Well, let me ask you this though, and I want you to be rational in answering this question and thinking about this question. The Pistons are 43-14 right now. The Thunder 45-15, the Spurs 42-16. These 3 teams, if we again are abiding by the 40-20 rule, have run away with it sweat free. if the Celtics, who again needed to beat Denver to sit at 39-19 and have a chance coming back home off a 4-0 trip, could have put it away, could have gone 40-19, and all of a sudden we're sitting here and we're celebrating, and you're, having a tweet that includes them in the conversation as opposed to the one that you posted late last night that does not off the loss. Do you really believe in your heart of hearts that if the Celtics started 40-19 versus what may very well be 40-20 with that 20th loss coming first, that they are less likely to win the championship?
Historically, yeah. I think their probability takes a hit just per NBA history. And I think when you look, like, they are not the only team in history that maybe missed it by a game or two, right? Like, that's why this is why the regular season matters. This is why being good in clutch situation matters. Like, this, other teams have had injuries throughout NBA history. Other teams have barely missed it. And I'm sure at those times their fans were like, okay, but we were one game away. What's the big difference? Well, how did that season end? You ultimately did not win. And I just think if you look at recent NBA history of the Celtics, right? In 21-22, when they had that massive turnaround, it was very fair for you to say the team they were entering the playoffs was not the team that was 25-24 through the month of January. So why would you, the 40-20 rule shouldn't apply to them. They're a different team now. What happened? They ran through the playoffs. They met a team in the finals who hit 40-20 and who won that championship. Look back at the Mavs series, right? Like, they were Kyrie, Luka. This is an unstoppable talent. They're running through everybody. What happened? They ran into a team that hit the 40-20 rule and they lost. Pacers last year, same sort of turnaround as the Celtics, right? They got all the way to game 7. What happens? SGA has that crazy close in that road fourth quarter. Then they win game 7. They were the 40-20 team. The Pacers weren't. So the idea that even if you're entering the playoffs a different team than you were when you maybe missed 40-20, that really doesn't matter if you're facing another team that also hit it. NBA history just says that's how it shakes out.
See, I can't tell you you're wrong simply because the history is the history, but I feel like a lot of what you just said is simply confirmation bias.
It is. There's part of that, right? Like, if I think that's part of the equation, but I just think it's a formula of everything. It's why you should never take, like, the 40-20 aspect isn't the end all be all. It's one of the important factors as you're building your contender profile. Right. And it's just something that you would rather check than not check. And if you're not going to check it, you then need to fit the profile of one of those very unique extenuating circumstances, which the Celtics do pending a Jason Tatum return. So it's like, you can't ignore it, but it does impact how things tend to shake out.
Well, I just find it's funny just because you look at the Western Conference, right? And the team that Boston played last night, we're recording on a Thursday, so Wednesday night, is also not going to hit 40-20, but they also have the freaking Terminator.
And I would say the same thing about the Nuggets' chances, though. You know what I mean? Like, yes, it's unfortunate they had injuries, and that's basically what compromised their 40-20. Tough luck. Like, that's life in the NBA. It's just not your year. That happens all the time. So it's like, I would say that about the Knicks, the Cavs, the Nuggets, all these teams that fancy themselves contenders. You didn't hit the contender mark. And that's just the hard reality that I think sometimes fans don't want to accept because they want to believe that, anything can happen in the playoffs. But when the dust settles and we look at what happened, 40 out of 44 has been a 40-20 team standing at the top of the mountain. That's just.
So look, any major injury can shift anything. Hell, the Cavs are, Donovan Mitchell's banged up. James Harden now has this thing. Like, any injury can. It was illness. Jamal Murray left early against the Celtics. You can look at any number of different things I recognize going forward. But as you sit here on a Thursday, ignoring 40-20 for a second, ignoring certain benchmarks, top 3, whatever, which teams, both conferences to you can just list them, are championship contenders? Which are the teams that you take seriously as winning a title?
I would say in the East, Pistons, Celtics, And I want to see if James Harden is still healthy. You know, he has that fractured thumb. I want to see how that looks because they have the potential to have a profile of someone that can make a run. And then in the West, I'd say it's OKC, a mini gap, Spurs, and that's probably it.
Why do you? I agree with you on the Rockets, by the way, but why do you dismiss them here?
Oh, why do I dismiss the Rockets?
We didn't list them.
I just don't believe in Ime's ability to effectively orchestrate a playoff offense. And I think not having Steven Adams has completely tanked their entire season. They're not generating the same amount of offensive rebounds, which is what basically fueled it's similar to the Celtics, to where his offensive rebounding and their size is what helps propel them to have a top 5 offense in the NBA. You take that out since Steven Adams is out for the year, they can't score. They don't. Point guard play and guard play is extremely important in playoff setting. They don't really have a point guard. And then you add in Ime's sort of shortcomings in a playoff series offensively. I just think they're going to be facing defenses that are just too good to overcome.
Why not the team with the best player in the NBA?
Who?
Jokic.
Yeah.
Mostly just because of 40-20, and I think the injury rule, the injury bug, I'm not sold that Aaron Gordon can stay healthy now. You have 2 big-time hamstring injuries like that. That makes me nervous. And I'm not positive they have enough, shooting outside of Murray and Jokic. I think Cam Johnson is, showing signs of life, but I worry about their shooting. And again, for me, it's mostly they didn't hit 40-20. Because had they, then absolutely. I care about that rule, so they'd be out for me.
Yeah, I just don't. I can't not put them in there just because of Jokic and what they've been able to do. I mean, you go back to that series last year with OKC, pushed them to 7 games, and that team was garbage. I mean, that team was really, really shouldn't have been there. The fact that they pushed to 7 was unbelievable, and I just have all the respect in the world for Jokic because what he can do to manipulate a game, I'll never count him out. And then but if you go back to your rule of like the SRS top 3 seed 40-20, and then you factor in the conference championship thing. Mm-hmm. So the only team that is really a contender are the Thunder because like the Pistons haven't won a series. The Spurs are super young. Like,
well, it depends.
You want to talk about teams that can't stay healthy.
Well, I mean, we're going to count Harrison Barnes as a guy.
I was just saying, you consider Harrison
like,
Barnes one of their.
Come on.
Well, but here's what I would tell you to that. If you look at the Thunder's profile in terms of their historic point differential, all the benchmarks, remember when the Celtics were on their run and we were like, why are people trying to make it seem like this isn't going to be another walk to the title when like it's staring at you in the face? People did that against the Thunder last year. They ended up winning. In theory, they are having the same type of season where it's like their profile is staring at you in the face. Like, you don't need to overthink it. So it would not shock me if they walked their way to a back-to-back championship. That's just, that would be in line with what we saw these last 2 years where the Celtics were historically dominant. We all were going crazy that they were, being doubted or picked against or whatever, when it's like, just look at what's in front of you. Last year, that was the Thunder. And I think that's happening again to them this year. They still have like a plus 12 point differential or something that's like historically all-time great. Like that just doesn't happen by accident in back-to-back years. And it may not be an easy run for them the same way last year wasn't. But if they happen to face a team like Denver that didn't hit 40-20, or they're facing a team like the Pistons that don't qualify for the conference finals rule, all that stuff would not surprise me if they just cruised and went back-to-back.
Are you ready to hand the East to the Pistons? I'm just talking regular season, not playoffs. Is 5.5 too big to overcome?
Last night was, I think, for me, the line of demarcation. I think you needed the Thunder to beat the Pistons to get the difference in losses to 4, and then you needed to win, obviously, last night. I just don't see, because remember, you lost the head-to-head tiebreaker with them when you lost by 1 point.
Yep.
So right now you trail by 5 in the loss column. Really, it's 6. There's 20 odd games to go. you ran out of time for the number 1 seed, unfortunately. But that doesn't mean they'll win. That doesn't mean they'll win the East.
No, we're just talking about I ask it because it's not that people should care about this sort of thing, but as we get to this stage of the year, and you're looking at odds, you're looking at conference standings, you're thinking about the various rules you've outlined, I start thinking about awards, right? And we've had plenty of Jaylen Brown MVP related conversation here on this show. And even with you, a number of times when the odds were much, much worse, we've had Joe Mazzulla Coach of the Year conversation. And Mazzulla, I think, is finally getting, the attention, the recognition that he deserves across the board, not just obviously locally here in our area, but still he is second on the board at, call it plus 450, plus 500, depending on where you do your shopping there, if you're into that space. But the runaway favorite right now is JB Bickerstaff, who of course leads the Pistons, and he's sitting right around minus 320 for anyone that cares. So I kind of feel like Mazzulla's only path to winning the award, if people are hell-bent on, damn it, Joe deserves a Coach of the Year award, how does he not have one already, is if the Celtics catch the Pistons. If the Pistons win the conference, if they do what they're doing, and again, I'm just talking regular season because it's a regular season award, I think Joe, not that he really cares, at least not that he would ever admit caring. I think he's pretty locked in at second.
Yeah, I would agree with you. The goalposts just move every year. It's just very inconsistent, right? Like, is it impressive what the Pistons have done? Absolutely. Like, how could you argue that? Is it more impressive than what we've seen Mazzulla and the Celtics accomplish? I think it depends on who you ask, right? I think all three of us would say yes, considering what they lost, what they replaced those positions with in terms of being, no names with zero NBA experience and minimum contract players. The fact that they have the profile that they do despite that, it's like if you took Cade off the Pistons, would they be this good all year? Probably not. That is what the Celtics have done without Tatum. So it's one of those you'll never get.
Of course, the Pistons don't have a Cade 2.0 like the Celtics have in Jaylen Brown.
I mean, they have an all-star in Jalen Duren.
Yeah, I mean, kind of.
I mean, he's not.
Don't get me wrong; he's having a career year. But do you really view Jalen Duren that way?
No, but he's still like the number 2. He would just have to elevate his game to a number 1 level the same way Jaylen Brown had to elevate his game to a number 1 level. It's one of those things where, like, when it was Mazzulla's championship year and they were historic, he can't win it. They have a super team. When Dagnall won it in his historic year with their loaded roster, that didn't seem to matter. This year, it's, best team, best conference, whatever. Well, where was that, when Mazzulla was there? How about when he won 57 games in year 1? It's just never going to be consistent. And I know he'll say he doesn't care, but like, I care. Like, what is it about his success? He's had the most success in the NBA since he got hired. Before, we were told he was a talent merchant. Now he's been just successful without the talent. Well, if that's not a reflection on the coaching, like, what the hell are we even doing? So I don't know. It's unfortunate, but I agree with you. The Pistons will finish in the 1 seed, and he'll probably get the award.
My favorite thing is, like, people are like, Jordan Ott should be a guy that's discussed more in the conversation. It's like, oh, absolutely. Lost Kevin Durant, blah, blah, blah. Well, Joe just went in there and pants that team. Like,
and
without Jaylen.
They got stuff back for Kevin Durant. The Celtics did not get anything back for losing Jason Tatum. You know what I mean? So it's like they took the albatross.
It's not just Tatum too. It's Al Horford. It's Kristaps Porzingis. It's Drew Holiday. It's all this stuff that's gone.
Right. But this is one of those situations where I do like to, recognize Vegas. I don't want to make this about gambling, but I think that a lot of the time that does more accurately tell the story or shape the narrative than, say, social media and one reporter's opinion, one writer's opinion, is a talking head on a 4-letter network, whatever. Because the odds right now, you've got Bickerstaff, as I said, followed by Mazzulla. It's really a 1-2 punch. Then, and I agree, he's absolutely in the conversation, Mitch Johnson at 10-1. Before you get to Jordan Ott, I mean, he's 4th, but he's 33-1. That tells you he has no chance of sniffing that award. So we can celebrate what Phoenix has done this year, and absolutely, it is vastly overachieved. We all thought the Suns were going to be a dumpster fire, one of the worst teams in the NBA, just as they were last year, by the way, with Kevin Durant. Yes, they got some things in return, but we all expected them to be just as bad, maybe even worse. So the fact that they are above 500 in a very difficult Western Conference, yeah, give them their due, but their due is not Coach of the Year. Todd has done a tremendous job, and now he's dealing with a lot of injuries. I mean, against the Celtics, we can say, as I did, no Jaylen Brown. There was also no Devin Booker. There was no Dylan Brooks. You wondered if Grayson Allen was going to be out there, their 3rd leading scorer. He was. They still got rocked, but it's not a good team. It's just a team that is way better than it should have been. So this is like the whole MVP thing in whatever the sport. How do you define value? Fine. How are you awarding Coach of the Year? What is the criteria? And I think that, man, I mean, I'm fine with Bickerstaff winning, assuming that he does. It makes
I
sense.
don't know. I think that's
but Mazzulla.
That's like when Dwayne Casey won it over Brad Stevens one year when he was the coach of the Pistons. It's just like, I don't know. It's just bizarre to me that, the criteria changes so much and it fits to an area that just so happens to bypass Joe Mazzulla while he continues to, win at a rate that no other team in the league is winning at.
I just think it's funny. I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday about this, and he made he's running through it. He's like, Joe Mazzulla, Coach of the Year conversation. Jaylen Brown, if a couple of guys get hurt, and we'll get there. MVP conversation. Brad Stevens, though, absolutely Executive of the Year. And I don't know. We'll see. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. But to me, if I'm choosing, like, Joe Mazzulla is way more deserving of Coach of the Year than Brad is of Executive of the Year. I mean, like, look, it's to go back to Bill Parcells and, like, these are the groceries kind of thing. I know that's not obviously the expression, but, like, if we're looking at the groceries that Joe has been handed, I just think what he has done. Remember,
you're not really moved
going to be a 25-win team.
Right. So you're not moved by the Garzilla edition? That doesn't
I wasn't moved by it at the time, and I'll own that one, by the way. Like, I saw them sign Luka Garza. I was like, really? Not like sign Charles Bassey. Like, I wanted Bassey. I mean, I allowed myself to get somewhat moved by Chris Boucher. Boucher played a total of like 3 minutes.
7 minutes.
Vucevic is one that I might actually be right about, because I did not like that trade. And we've never actually, just because of the timing, I missed the show that Evan handled after the trade deadline, and then we moved into other things. I never really talked about the Vooch thing, but the very short part of it, I like Vooch. I like him as a player. I just wanted the Celtics to use
if we're being honest,
get a big that could be part of the future, not just a salary slot. I didn't want a 35 or however old he is rental. I wanted a guy who's around 30, maybe a little lower. Claxton, Zubats, guys that we talked about there. So Vooch, I mean, look, we know what he's capable of, but it's not been very good.
I would almost say it's like flipped, right? Where if we're like, when I look at Phoenix, Coach of the Year makes no sense to me. But if you want to look at their executive for Executive of the Year, I could understand that, because you took your big money salary and you created a roster of ancillary pieces that have had that success. So to me, that's more of an executive roster builder. If they want to say, because Brad Stevens' draft picks are now finally getting opportunity and are hitting, I can maybe see that argument, right? Like, he did pick Ugo, he did pick Walsh, he did pick Baylor, who have all taken a leap. They just never really played, previously.
Right.
So
you only
that
picked one
more
of those this year.
Right. So, like, is that more the coaching aspect? I think yes. But if you then want to say getting under the aprons the way that they did without giving up any of those pieces combined with their development, I could see, and I'm just never going to be opposed to Brad winning anything because he deserves the world. But like,
he's a winner.
Right. I just look at something where if we're talking about an executive's impact on this current roster, the Phoenix part of it where they brought in all these, unproven guys, low minimum guys, cut guys that were, released from other teams, and they found a way to work. That was them shifting their culture, right? They went from the big name super team to the tough, gritty, like Bridgie Celtics type culture. That is team building, and that I think is, the executive part.
I know we got to toss to a break in a second, but I just want to point this out. Like, it's funny just to look at this all the time. And again, this is going to sound so Homer-ish. It's going to sound like I have green color glasses on, but it is just a
you on your plus minus again?
What's up?
You on your plus minus again with Hugo?
No. What I want to point out, like, if you look at the history of the NBA, since Brad's gotten here, you look at the wins. Like, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but the Celtics have won basically like more games than anybody else since like Brad got here, or like since like Jason Tatum got to Boston, right? Like they've won like more games than anybody else. Neither Brad nor Joe have won Coach of the Year. Like neither of these guys who have overachieved. Brad was all about overachieving during his again. As soon as they got like Jason Tatum, they just started overachieving like crazy.
Yeah,
like neither of these two guys, despite all the winning that they've done, have won Coach of the Year. And the thing with Joe, like this year specifically, and what gets me upset because it's like, as Greenie says, the goalposts keep like if it were anybody else, if it were literally any other coach in the NBA that was doing what he's doing, like if Dagnall lost, Shea for the whole season and J-Dub had the season that Jaylen Brown's having, there would be no discussion.
Right.
Mark Dagnall could be Coach of the Year. It just seems to be, and maybe it's a bias that we all have, but it just feels from like where we are sitting that no matter what Joe does, he changed the way they play. That with a significantly less talented roster, that just doesn't matter.
He's answered every critique. He's a talent merchant. Okay, no, obviously he's not. He can't adjust his system. He only plays one way by chucking up threes. Nope, not true. You know what I mean? Like, so to have a season that they're having while also disproving all of his criticisms. How could you not say, okay, we bend the knee, like give this guy the respect and award that he deserves? It's just like you said, maybe it's a bias that we're just, caught up in, victim complex, whatever. But like, I don't know, all we can do is evaluate based off what we see. And it's like, what more? Let me put it this way. What more does he have to do to finally win it if this season doesn't do it? Like what? Okay, fine. This wasn't a season that qualifies. So what is a season that would qualify for that award?
Yeah, I'm not sure there's ever going to be a more impressive Joe season given the hand he's been dealt.
Maybe year one, because he got the job like 6 days before the season started.
Sure,
and
but
he won 57
I'm just talking about going forward.
Right.
I don't know what that season looks like that is more deserving than the one that he is having right now. But let's take a quick break. Tell you today's episode is powered by PrizePicks. Shoot your shot on PrizePicks. Get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first for only $5. That's right. PrizePicks is now giving you $50 in lineups when you sign up and play your first for only $5. PrizePicks makes every dunk, every dime, every board that much more exciting. So don't miss this chance to get started on America's #1 app for sports picks.
Yeah, PrizePicks, simple to play, Kaufman. You just pick 2 to 6 stat projections. If your picks are right, you cash in. You pick from all your favorite sports. A lot going on: basketball, baseball, hockey, UFC, college basketball, tennis, golf. It's all coming up because this is the best time of year. You got March Madness, Masters, all that fun stuff. And with that in mind, we are back with our Flex Play. It'll be on Thursday, but Flex Play Friday for the week. We're going to start with Connipple. More than 2.5 threes made versus the Pacers. The Pacers not trying to win. The Hornets have done a lot of winning recently, so we love that. Onyeka Okongwu, this one is just like he has to do this one time. More than 0.5 dunks versus the Wizards, who, again, are actively trying to lose. And then you have Victor Wembanyama. We're going to go less than 26.5 points and assists versus the Nets. Why am I picking that? Well, they played the night prior, and they're going to be beating the Nets so bad that Vic's probably not going to play that much. So we're going to go less than on that. If I hit all three, 3x my money. If I don't, which happens frequently, I hit 2 out of 3, at least get my money back. So that's a nice win. And getting your money couldn't be any easier. In just little as 15 minutes, watch it roll into your account. I use Venmo. It's super easy, but you look at your bank account, et cetera, et cetera. And if your lineup is on fire and you hit early, well, PrizePicks pays you out early. Kaufman doesn't get better than that.
So download the PrizePicks app. Do it today. Heck, do it right now. Use the code CLNS. You get $50 in lineups after playing your first for only $5. Again, download the PrizePicks app today. The promo code CLNS. Get $50 in lineups after playing your first for only $5. Code CLNS. $50 in lineups. Just play your first for only $5 to qualify. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. All right, Greenie. So we will. I'll just because of I don't know how people feel about awards talk, and we've done a lot of it surrounding Joe. We'll push out Jalen for a moment. This is not going to be a breakdown of the Celtics-Nuggets game because this is a big picture show and it's once a week, and people may listen after the next game has been played at home as they open the homestand. So I don't want to again spend too much time on it, but there were a couple things. I got this game wrong. Not so much that I believed the Celtics were going to win, and I was trying to, will them to victory, obviously, to, keep 40-20 still in play. We've, I think, broken the record, by the way, for shows that say 40-20 and of I don't know what period of time. But what I did feel going into the game was the Celtics can win this one if I don't really care what Jokic does from a standpoint of, like, he could drop 40, he could have a dozen rebounds. Just don't let him go for a triple-double. Don't let him have 10 assists, and don't let another guy kill you. So to me, a formula would have been Jokic, again, he could score 40, 45 points, keep him to around 5-6 assists. Don't let another guy go for, 15, 18 points. Boom, you win.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Jokic dropped specifically
30, 12, and 5, right? 30, 12, and 6, something
30,
like that.
12, and 6. So they controlled the distribution. No other player on that team, and a lot of this because Jamal Murray got hurt, but not another player on that team exceeded 14 points. So the formula in my mind for a Celtics win in Denver was there. To me, this was not a case of, as is so often the case across NBA games that Denver plays, too much Jokic. This wasn't, to me, too much Jokic. This was not enough of the collective Celtics. Now, in the first half, I mean, they were ahead. They weren't running away, but they were ahead. So it felt like, this is a very real thing. How much to you was just, hey, end of the road trip, second leg of a back-to-back, guys are tired? What went into ultimately basically a 20-point loss?
I think a few things. I think for some, back-to-back legs mattered. For someone like Jalen, I would not say that. He didn't play against Phoenix, and he didn't play particularly well. So it's a combination of tough scheduling situation, but also I think it showed us what a playoff caliber defense looks like and what the limitations of a non-Jason Tatum Celtics team is when facing that caliber of defense. I think the Nuggets were fantastic in their ball pressure. They were fantastic at fighting through screens. On every drive, you had guys digging in and clogging the paint. Peyton Pritchard couldn't get an open look to save his life when he put the ball on the floor. Everyone stayed home. So I think, while yes, they also shot like 20%, which is, maybe tired legs for the non-Jalen players, but it also showed you that this team needs Jason Tatum to be effective and make a deep playoff run once they're facing a team with size, who can defend, who has a best in the world MVP caliber player on the roster, right? That has become pretty glaring to me with their play against all of these contending or top seeded teams. If you look, I mean, they've struggled. They're 1-2 or 1-3 against the Pistons. They lost to San Antonio. They're 1-1 against the Rockets. They're 1-3 or whatever again, or 1-2 against the Knicks. It's like teams that have size that can, and let's not forget, the Nuggets didn't have Murray. They didn't have Peyton Watson. They didn't have Aaron Gordon. 3 more big time size players that can play on both ends. So I think it was more the loss I attribute more to their poor shooting, but I do not think that you can overlook the fact that we saw what this version looked like going up against a quality opponent and a quality defense who has a pulse and can match what and can take away what you want to do. And there was no overcoming that. And that, I think, is not a back-to-back issue. That, I think, is just the reality of what it's like playing a good, sound defensive team.
Yeah, there's no shame in that either. It's like, you lost to, again, the best player in the world. And it was interesting how they guarded them. He shot 13 threes last night,
right?
Which I think was deliberate. I think they were like, hey, have as much fun as you want out there. Have a blast. Because, but anyway, it's sort of expected, again, given the lack of talent and lack of Jason Tatum. But it is also like the last leg of a road trip.
Yeah, like that's a tough schedule spot for sure.
Yeah, I honestly did think there was a path, but Boston turning the ball over like that, like crazy, especially in the first half. Would they have like 4 turnovers in the first 5 minutes of the game?
There were a lot of the problem signs, signs, the turnovers, the horrendous rebounding.
Game, though. Not an egregious number.
No, but it was just more like when they were
the
happening.
How and the when. I get it.
Right, well, yeah, and if the Greenie pointed out, I think last night early in the game, you're like, first off, like the Nuggets weren't playing well, and you weren't creating that separation that you needed to get away from them.
Yeah.
At halftime, it was like, both these teams aren't playing well. I guess if you're both teams, you're like, hey, we're in this thing. We haven't really played that well. Well, one team figured it out, one team didn't, and that's
right. And I mean, listen, from 146 of the third quarter to when Joe pulled everybody with 5 minutes left in the fourth. So what is that? Like 12 minutes of game action or something like that, 10 minutes of game action. They were 1 of 15 from the floor. That's where the game opened. It was 67-66, and then they went 1 for 15 from the floor. You're going to lose. Like, sorry. You have to score. You have to put the ball in the basket to win in the game of basketball. So it's like they ran out of gas in that aspect, but it was the turnovers while the Nuggets couldn't shoot. You're wasting these offensive possessions to where, Jokic is going to do his thing. They were fortunate enough to win the first stint of the Jokic minutes. He comes off the floor. There's no separation, right? They got it up to 8, but then it was immediately back down to 2 to 4. Then when Jokic comes back in, it's like, all right, you have to basically play the Jokic minutes even or lose them by a small margin. And then when he sits and you have Derek White on the floor, you have Jaylen Brown on the floor, that's when you need to create your 8 to 10 point cushion for when Jokic comes back. And it was the shooting and the turnovers and the lack of rebounding that really prevented them from going from a 4-point lead to a 9-point lead. Instead, it was a 4-point lead to a 2-point lead or a 1-point lead. Like, they just couldn't get that momentum swing because of their self-inflicted wounds. And it looked just like the early season Celtics to me, of 4 or 5 offensive rebounds on a single trip. Every missed layup is resulting in a 3 on the other end. You're the only baskets you seem to be giving up are 3s, despite the opposing team not being able to make anything. So it was a combination of everything. And it's just one of those you take on the chin and you watch the film and you move on. But, you go 1 for 15 for, the home stretch of a game at altitude. You're probably not going to pull that one out, unfortunately.
You mentioned the effect of Jason Tatum. Now, we know he's about there. Mm-hmm. I mean, we don't know what the hang-up is at this point. Is it a physical limitation? Is it mental? Is it, just waiting for that last line of clearance from doctors? Who knows? Again, we're not behind the scenes there. But we do know, according to the reports, that he is now full go practicing 5-on-5 with his teammates, not the G League, not Maine, his teammates. Obviously, there's all the talk around the documentary and that coming out, first installment dropped and all that stuff, so this orchestrated, cataloged return, or, there's a better word for it than that. But we all believe, I'm putting words in your mouth here, Greenie, because I know how Ev feels. We all believe he's coming back. It's now a question of when is that happening And how long is the ramp up to the playoffs? You know, is he going to have enough time to attempt to get himself right? You know, we don't even know how to define that because he doesn't know how to define that. He doesn't know what this is all going to look like when he's actually back out there on the floor. But you mentioned an effective Tatum. There are a lot of people, some local contrarians, more national voices, people who just like to be loud, who actually think this is a bad idea. Now, I think that part of it is nuts. But if I'm to entertain it for a second, obviously sports are different. If you can get your best player back from injury in baseball, a very individual sport, you're going to do it in a heartbeat. Football, again, if there's no risk of further injury and you feel like he's right to return, you're going to do it. Hockey, sure as hell. Like if you can have Nate McKinnon back from injury, the Colorado Avalanche are going to take it. Basketball is a team game, maybe more so than some. And there are people that look at this and say that Tatum, not through any fault of his own, but just the scenario, the situation, it could be disruptive to what has gone so well for Boston, has gone so well for Jaylen Brown in particular. Whose team is it? Who's the ball running through? All of these things. Do you worry about it? Or do you just say, holy crap, get Jason Tatum back as soon as humanly possible?
Yes. I don't know. There's two things I do not worry about. One, his, the health aspect of him coming back, because I think it's really, what's the word? It's irresponsible of us on the outside to say, oh, it's too early for him. They're not going to put him out on the floor until he's checked every box, cleared every hurdle, is mentally and physically ready. Like that, I'm not worried about that. He has to play eventually. If he's ready to go, he's ready to go. If he's not, they'll hold him out, and that's fine too. The part of, the fit, the chemistry, whose team is it? That I feel like we're just trying to be 2019 all over again. This team has a decade of experience of how to play together. Even this version of Jaylen Brown. Let's not forget, in 22-23, Tatum averaged 30, Jaylen averaged 27, taking over 20 shots a game. This has existed before in the Celtics era with these two together. Not only that, they don't even run the same type of wing-initiated offense through Jaylen that they do through Tatum. So when I think of Jaylen's role, almost nothing about how he plays changes when Tatum comes back. Nothing. What changes is we will be going from more of a guard-initiated offense with Pritchard and White back to a wing-initiated offense with Tatum. That is the strategy and play style difference. Not, Jaylen Brown's the number one, now he has to be a number two. No, because what has made the Jays so good is that at any given moment in any given game, both guys can deliver that number one role. So I've never doubted their ability to work together, their ability to do what it takes in order to make this team successful and to win. So I just think a lot of that is your standard, have to talk about something and it gets people like me fired up. So now I'm blogging about it. But when you actually think about how the Celtics play, so Tatum coming back would mean Jaylen Brown gets less mid-range jumpers. That doesn't make any sense to me. It makes he won't be driving to the basket more, or he'll be driving to the basket less with better spacing with Tatum on the floor. That doesn't make sense to me. So I just think you have to understand how the Celtics are playing offense with this version. Sure, they're going to go back to a version that fits Tatum's skill set and strengths. But what's nice about that is Tatum's skill set and strengths also help and enhance the things that Jaylen has succeeded in this season. We know that because they've done it for nearly a decade.
And the big thing here is people are getting super upset, or not upset, well, just heated, I guess, over this. They think that Tatum's going to come back and play 35 minutes a game.
Right.
When you really think about it, Tatum's not going to actually play that much. I mean, he's going to play. It's not like he's not going to, but he's not going to be logging. When you look at their playoff runs, both of them are 40, 41, 42 minutes per game. Tatum's not going to play like that. They're not going to be Tatum, we're going to throw him out there for 38 minutes. No. Right. No, they're not going to do that. They're going to try and 15 minutes, 17 minutes, 18, 20, something like that. Where it's he comes in, for this amount of time and he plays, this type of way, but like the rest of the game is going to be what we've been doing the entire season. And not only that,
I wouldn't even say they're going to treat him in his role any differently. I just think it'll just be given to us in shorter stints and in a smaller sample. Like they're not all of a sudden going to say, hey, Jason, you're like one of the best initiating wings on planet Earth. But, now that you're back and healthy and fully medically cleared, we're not going to give you the ball and let you do your thing. That would be so stupid. But I think what we're going to see is, whereas that may be the plan for 35 minutes a game, now it may only be the plan for 20 to 22 minutes of a game when he's on the floor. So it's not a play style change. It's adapting to playing, knowing you're only getting that Tatum style for like 60% of the game as opposed to 100% of the game.
But you have to wonder what he's up for, right? Again, I mean, isn't that just the great unknown? Like we can all talk about, has this fit? Who's the ball go through? How much is he going to play? We don't know because, again, we're not seeing practices. We don't know how he's holding his own against his current teammates when they're going 5-on-5. Nobody's got footage of this sort of thing. We're getting at best still images, let alone the report that he's even out there. So, we don't Joe, like even Bobby Manning, hey, did he practice? And Joe just next questioning him, we're not getting any breadcrumbs here. And I know that's deliberate. And I don't even care about that because we just need to see it with our own eyes. If and when it happens anyway, again, believing that it's a when, not an if. But we don't know what this dude's body is going to allow him to do.
Right. I think we have to see it.
Factor of all of it.
Right. And I think that's been the story of our entire season, right? We wanted to know in the summer, what were the Celtics going to do in the trade deadline? Are they going to get under luxury tax? You couldn't answer that question. You had to just wait. It's almost the same thing here, right? What's Tatum going to do? Like, we all just have to just take a deep breath. We have to see what he looks like. Once we see what he looks like, we can then say, okay, with this version of Jason Tatum, here's what we think, it should look like or it can look like. If he comes back and it's business as usual, they shouldn't change anything, right? Mm-hmm. But if he's coming back and they're saying, hey, maybe it looks like Gordon Hayward's initial return, there's still that, the hurdle to get over once you're active. Yeah, they'll probably adjust and do whatever is conducive to winning. It's just we all want him back so badly and we want to know what it looks like, but it's such a unique industry and injury and such a unique player and recovery that we really just all have to just bite our tongues and wait to see what it actually looks like.
Yeah, I just think like if you had told me in May, right after he ruptured his Achilles, and I went on Barrett's show with a glass of tequila, trying to get through it, trying to talk my way through it. If you had told me then, hey, not only is Tatum going to come back in March, but they would have had a shot at 40-20 to bring this full circle, I would have thought you were absolutely out of your friggin' mind.
Which one would have been the more unbelievable one to you? That Tatum wasn't going to be out the full season, or 40-20?
40-20, no question to me. No question.
Yeah, I would probably say 40-20, only because I was so hopped up on the propaganda of the quick surgery, whatever. And I was like, all right, maybe it won't be a year. I was only of the thought that they would shut him down for the year if they had a season from hell. So I have to say it had to have been that they had a legit shot at 40-20, even as late as after the Bulls loss, right? I think they were 33-18 after that Bulls loss, something like that. So even that they still had an opportunity that late in the season following that loss, I think it has to be 40-20.
I'm with you, Greenie. I think I was talking to myself.
That's like a 55 win pace, right? To hit 40-20, 56 win pace. You're out of your damn mind if anybody on this planet thought the Celtics would be at that pace, with their roster. That's just
like, I don't know if you boys
season.
I don't know if you boys remember, but like the copium that you're talking about, like how quickly we were all talking ourselves into, well, he did it in May, so it is possible if you do the timeline. Because the
doctor was already in New York City, so it really wasn't that big of a deal.
A couple of weeks later, you look at Halliburton go down, you're like, there's no shot. He's got no shot to come back. But like literally 2 weeks prior or 3 weeks prior, like, it's possible. If you connect the dots, like we can get there.
Yeah.
I'd be curious, Ev, to go back to know, because again, this is a weekly show, no exceptions. I mean, I realize like I'm not here every single week necessarily, or you're not here. I think generally, Ev, you are here. But I wonder at what point the conversation changed. Like, how far back did we go from he's not playing next year to, oh, I think he's playing this year? I want to know exactly when we made that shift.
As a fan base, for me,
we flip-flop a little bit.
We did. We went back and forth for a few weeks, but I want to know what time we truly landed. It was early. It was earlier than most. That much I know.
Interesting. I was going to say, my line of demarcation was where they were sitting at the trade deadline.
Oh,
but,
no, way before that.
But their season was indicative that they were probably going to be pretty good well before the trade deadline. So
I legit think Ev and I might have started to change our tune as early as like late September.
Interesting.
I can tell you,
it was very early.
I can tell you the moment I think it is when that video leaked out of him dunking off 2 feet. Whenever that was, I think
that was probably September.
Way further than I expected.
Yeah, that feels right.
Although,
wasn't
it 6 months? That was like at the 6 month mark post surgery. So that would have been like December? October, November, I think. No, maybe I misremember.
I don't know.
That video, I remember seeing that video and being like, "That is substantial." Like, I did not expect.
You know why I feel like, because I remember how I'm now. We got that Tatum dunk video, I think, and at the same time, Halliburton was taking like stationary free throws, and you're like, wait a second.
Yeah.
Wait a second. You're taking stationary free throws. Tatum is dunking off 2 feet. We may be ahead of schedule here, is how I remember viewing it. It's like Damon and Halliburton are doing stationary jumpers. Tatum is dunking. Those are not the same.
Listen, Dame's out there participating in 3-point contests.
Right.
So Dame's still living his best life. All right, before we get out of here, Greenie, and winning them, not even participating. So the Celtics sitting 5.5 back again of the Pistons in the East, and they are just this upcoming schedule coming off the road, back home for 4 out of the next 5. Sitting here as we sit here tomorrow against the Nets, and then you got the Sixers, which of course is the game flexed to Peacock, nationally televised, where everyone's like, this might be the Tatum game. I don't think it's happening. Love to be wrong. I don't think it's that day. Then they're at Milwaukee. Then the one that I circled, this is the one that I was hanging my hat on throughout much of the year, was the day after the birthday game at home against Charlotte on Wednesday, March 4th. So I figure the next time we're going to have a podcast, probably could be a week from today, could be the day after that game, and maybe we're talking about the return of Tatum. But before, which is insane. So I do want to take us somewhere else before we do get out of here. But just since I'm on this line of thinking, knowing that after the 4 out of the next 5, then you got another 3-game trip, and then it's back home, Washington, Phoenix, Golden State, and then you're within the month at that point of ramp up to the playoffs. Do you have a date, Greenie? And I remember you were an early March 4th adopter too.
Listen, I was a February 27th believer.
Okay, so you've already, I guess, been wrong at one point. Assuming we don't get the Jason Tatum questionable, tweet from the Celtics
today,
at some point later on. But what's the date that you have circled right now?
So I like your March 4th. I think there's a mid-March home game on ESPN, right, against Dallas. I think is the 12th. I think because they're March 6th. The one after Charlotte is home against Dallas on ESPN. Oh, maybe that's what I'm thinking.
And then after that, you have NBA TV, at least as it exists now, against Washington on the 14th.
Okay.
Or Golden State on the 18th at home on ESPN.
Okay. I tend to believe we're trending towards either the 4th or the 6th.
Soon.
That's because if he's already practicing 5-on-5, you get what, another week of that? Like, do you need another month of 5-on-5 before you get?
Well, this goes back to what Cedric Maxwell said to us last week. It's better that he comes back sooner, just because you need as much time as you can possibly get to get ready for this thing. So
So if he's already playing 5-on-5 against the Celtics, let's just say, even though I believe that has probably been happening for a little bit of time now, let's just say that Shams report was practice number 1, right? If they have 2 or 3 more practices, right, that probably takes you into that first week of March. You get 4 or 5 runs. Like, I don't know. I think that is conceivable, because if you look at their schedule, they have a back-to-back at the back end of the month of March. He's certainly not playing in that game. So it's like you run out of games for a runway pretty quickly the later you get into March. And I also don't really want him coming back where you're maybe resting a Derek White or a Peyton Pritchard to give them, I want him to have minutes with the normal rotation. And the earlier or the later in March you do that, you run the risk of setting yourself up for rest ahead of the playoffs. That, I think, just puts even more stress on Tatum. So it's a combination of the amount of games you have available and how teams usually treat the end of the season. I think he should get 5 or 6 games in the beginning half of the month to just get his sea legs under him, so that by the time you're at the ramp up stage, it's a much easier transition for him. Because if you look at the standings, you're probably playing like the Magic, the Sixers, like teams that, can be big, can be physical, especially a team like Orlando. Like, he needs to have game reps in order to be ready for that.
All right. Before we do go, just because I promised it, we don't need to spend a long time on it because it's going to continue to be a conversation periodically here. MVP.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, I guess it's a 3-horse race just based on the odds. SGA, who's been the favorite all year, really, at minus 130, where I'm looking. And then Jokic at 3-1. I bet him at 5-1 just for giggles after that injury. And then Cunningham, who I also bet on recently, at 6-1. He's plus 550. Then you've got a real range. Wemby 18-1, Luka 40-1, same as Jaylen Brown. There are a lot of people nationally even that want to include Jaylen Brown in the MVP conversation, even say that he deserves the award. I have been someone, and this is a little semantic, I realize, but I have been someone who says, look, you're not in the conversation unless you really have a chance to win it.
Right.
You just get votes. That doesn't mean you're in the MVP conversation if someone destroys you in the votes. It's like saying Justin Herbert was in the MVP conversation in the NFL because he got 1 vote. So I don't really look at it that way. So for me, as of right now, Jaylen Brown is not in the MVP conversation, even though he will get some votes. However, because of this now 65-game requirement to be eligible for postseason awards, Jokic is probably going to miss it. SGA very realistically could miss it. It will open things up considerably. Cade would still be a heavy favorite as we sit here, and I don't think, barring a serious injury, he's in jeopardy of falling short of the 65. I'd have to look exactly at where he is right now. I would put Jaylen over Luka. I don't know that I'd put him over Wemby, but
Wemby may not make it either. He can only miss 2 or 3
true.
also. Yeah.
Yeah, also true. So, I mean, what do you think in terms of, like, if you're, and I'm not asking you to make the case. You could make the case. We could all do it. If you're projecting ahead, can you make the argument for Jaylen over Cade to actually realistically have a chance to win the thing?
I would say like all those, the Wembys, the SGAs, the Jokic's all have to miss the 65. And I do think it'll depend on how close the Celtics and the Pistons are when it's all said and done in terms of record. And I think where you may see, it'll mostly, their numbers are, it's not like when you look at Jaylen's advanced and normal numbers compared to like SGA and Jokic, they're in 2 different galaxies. Like, that's unfair to Jaylen in that type of comparison.
Sure.
With Cade, it's a little bit more in the same ballpark. So then it just becomes a battle of narratives, in my opinion. Which narrative will beat it out? Will if the Pistons win 60 games, will that narrative hold more weight than if the Celtics win 54 with their context of their season? I don't really know if there's, how that shakes out, but I would say if the others don't miss the 65-game mark, then I view this season from Tatum just like I view, or from Brown, just the same way I view Tatum's 22-23 when he finished 4th and made first team All-NBA, and Isaiah Thomas's 2016-2017 when he finished 5th and made first team All-NBA. Like, you're still having an elite season, but MVP is a level to where you need to take down Jokic and SGA, who's just the team success and the statistical profile that they have is just so otherworldly that I'm not sure that I can say a narrative trumps that level of impact.
There's no argument for me on that one. But like, it's been a spectacular ride, baby. I've loved every second.
There's no shame in coming in 5th in the MVP vote. Like, you were awesome that year. That's all. And I just think, people you're hearing now, oh, he should be the favorite. That's just gaslighting. I don't pay any mind to that, because when you look at his body of work, it is not a better body of work than your standard MVP candidates right now. Where there could be conversations is your Cade argument, like you mentioned, to where we'll just have to see what narrative holds most weight. And if that's how he wins an MVP, I'm not going to apologize for it. But I do think, obviously, you have to understand Wemby, SGA, Jokic, they all missed the 65 game limit, and that ultimately impacts, how things shake out.
I'd be curious to look back through history to, maybe I'll do this, certainly not now, but on my own time, how many times an MVP has won prior to that rule failing to play in 65 games. I'm sure there are.
I think Walton only played like 61, maybe. I think Embiid was under in his MVP season, if I remember correctly. I have to go back and look, but it's happened before, but not very few and far between. Guys usually play over 65 who win.
Yeah, I think it's a fair number to require. I have no problem with the rule, and I would say that even if but the guy I'm supporting misses it, I think it's a very reasonable.
It is a little unfortunate if you play like 63. You know what I mean? Like, what's the difference of, that's kind of like the 40-20 rule. It's like you're right there. It's like, oh well, it just wasn't your year. You missed. You got hurt. It's just unfortunate. That's how the cookie crumbles.
All right, Greenie. Well, next time we're talking, God willing, Jason Tatum is an active member of the Boston Celtics once again.
Crazy.
And, the fact that Evan and I could be having this discussion 1 week from now, and that's the case, is kind of mind-blowing, and can't wait to watch it, obviously. Like we've said, like you've tweeted, it's going to be a loud pop. Going to be a loud pop from the home crowd, whether that is coming off the bench getting the announcement or as that 5th starter announced. Either way, that tickets for that game, if they're not all sold out across the board anyway, I can only imagine what tickets to the games in and around these speculative dates cost right now, knowing that we live in this era of, jacking up prices depending on the level of importance for games.
Probably, it would probably take a mortgage payment, I would think, to get into the building.
All right. For Dan Greenberg, for Evan Valenti, I'm Adam Kaufman. Remember, you can always check out Celtics Beat via just the audio. You can go to wherever you subscribe and get your podcast, rate, review, download, most importantly, subscribe to Celtics Beat. If you want the video, if you want to look at us or any other guests that we have along the way, and who could blame you, Cedric Maxwell, he was fun last week, for instance. A lot of good stories from him. And stick around till the end, because it only got a little more wonky and wacky with that particular show. You can always go to the CLNS, All Access page on YouTube. Again, CLNS All Access page on YouTube, and you will find us, along with a number of other wonderful Celtics podcasts that are within the family, including Max's for that matter. So, Greenie, just a matter of time before we have you as a regular weekly staple on this show, and we venture you fully into the podcast forum.
Listen, anytime you guys need me, I'm here for you. Just hit me up.
We appreciate it. All right. Again, for the three of us, all of you, we thank you for watching, listening, reviewing, and Tatum, it's coming. He's coming soon. See ya.
See ya.